What's up, everybody? And welcome in to Good Karma Wrestling, along with Brian Rowett from ESPN West Palm and Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee. I'm Jonathan Hood from ESPN 1000. We're so glad you're with us for another edition of Good Karma Wrestling. Don't forget to check out our podcast as well. Wherever you get your podcast, check out Good Karma Wrestling. And, of course, on YouTube as well. We're getting close to the 300 mark with our YouTube, youtube.com. Look for Good Karma Wrestling. And, of course, you know I'm looking forward to, Brian, coming up on Saturday, SummerSlam, emanating from Nashville, Tennessee. It's going to be great because we will have our post show for SummerSlam. So after SummerSlam, hang out with your boys, Good Karma Wrestling.
That's right. Come right here to this, wherever you're watching right now, wherever on Twitter or YouTube, come right here. Catch us as soon as SummerSlam. It's also the Ric Flair pre-show. The Ric Flair final match will be going on the next day. So we got a lot to talk about Saturday night.
No question. So after SummerSlam, make sure that you're with us. Also, we're going to be on Twitch as well for this broadcast. It's twitch.tv/ESPN1000 Chicago. If you follow us on social at GKW_wrestling, you'll get all the details. Also on Instagram at Good Karma Wrestling. Man, we've got so much to get to, but let's talk about our number one topic. We got a lot to get to, Brian. So Gabe will be with us shortly, but let's get to it.
That's right. Vince McMahon on Friday. We had our show a week ago. We had a special show Friday. But on Friday, Vince McMahon announces his retirement. Stephanie and Nick Khan named co-CEOs. We've also learned that Triple H will be in charge of creative. Quite a week, not just in WWE world, but really the wrestling world this past week.
Indeed. And so I think a lot of people were wondering, you know, Brian, okay, so what is this going to look like? You know, post Vince, will SmackDown change? Will Raw change? It's amazing. Wrestling social media is like, oh, so my favorites will be able to get over now? Is Shelton Benjamin going to get that main event? Like, wait, stop, wait a minute. Like, you got to understand that some of this stuff's already been written under Vince. What I understand is that for SmackDown and Raw, it was already written. It just wasn't torn up the day of like Vince would do, right? It's amazing. These writers will go through the weekend, writing up Raw, writing up SmackDown, and Vince has to look it over on a Saturday or Sunday. They get to the building on Monday, and like at 11 a.m., he's like, nope, I don't like this, and would tear up the whole thing. The only difference is that for especially Raw and Madison Square Garden, they held everything that Vince agreed to, everything the writers agreed to. They had a few tweaks, but otherwise, it was what Vince wanted. I think after SummerSlam, that's exactly when we'll be able to see the true Triple H era of Raw and SmackDown and creative.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm sure a lot of people, tuned in on Monday and Friday like, oh, this is it. Post Vince, this is the new era of WWE. But you watch Monday night, there's still the promo parade to start the show. There still is a singles match that turns into a tag match, previewing Sunday. There still is Usos and Street Profits in the ring together because we're doing that all year, I guess. Like any week there's TV, those four are going to be in the ring together. It still is the same. I agree. I think post SummerSlam is when we see it. And also it's weird. I've seen a few people tweeting today, why do we have this blind trust that all of a sudden NXT Black and Gold is what we're going to see on Monday and Friday? Like, Triple H is a good businessman. And as great as NXT was, they're not drawing $2 million a week. And, they're selling out Barclays and things like that. But he's not just going to all of a sudden give us, Kevin Owens and Ricochet to main event WrestleMania. Like, where is his blind trust all of a sudden? Like, that's the weird part right now.
Okay, so from my standpoint, I appreciated what NXT was under Triple H and then Shawn Michaels. And the reason why is because they were giving me what I wanted as a wrestling fan.
Correct.
Some grew up in the entertainment era where they want, bells and whistles and jazz hands. I don't necessarily have to have a whole 2 hours of that. But what I saw from Triple H was, at least when it came to, especially the takeovers, it came down to pro wrestling, the best of the best. And some of the great moments of NXT was under the Triple H brand. And so people are wondering, well, how do you know Triple H will be any good at this? Only because I saw what he did at NXT. Now, when people say, I'm not sure that Triple H will be able to get the job done, they look at AEW versus NXT and they say, man, Tony Khan beat his ass. And he did. When they went head-to-head, AEW was kicking NXT's ass. Right. It didn't mean that NXT was any less than, though. That's the only thing. We had two great shows head-to-head. I mean, it reminded me of the Nitro and the Raw years, where you had two good shows back-to-back against one another, and you had to choose. So I just think that Triple H understands a lot of things, which we'll get into. But one of the things he understands is storytelling, long-term storytelling to build to a crescendo to a match. Instead of just having, here's a program with 2 wrestlers or 4 wrestlers, I don't like what I see, in 2 weeks we're going to blow it up.
Sure.
At least he's able to think it through, and then we'll see what happens. But I thought he has at least a B+, at the worst a B+, as a booker for NXT. I liked it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And overall, like, the bar to clear is very low when it comes to Vince and creative. Like, we've talked about a lot. Wrestling is not wrestling. Wrestling probably doesn't exist if not for Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. But the last decade or so, creative has sort of passed him by. Like, it's been the typical fart jokes and things like that. And he's playing for an audience of 1, which is himself. And then basically all the stooges in the back are like, oh, yeah, that is funny, Vince, good one. And, it's past him. So the bar is very low for Triple H to clear. But, like, I don't think we can just all of a sudden assume that he's going away from sports entertainment. Will we get some better storytelling? Yes. Will we get maybe no more Roman and Brock ever? Hopefully. But, like, I don't think we can just all of a sudden assume we're going to get, Gargano and guys like that who is trending, because now a lot of people think he'll be there Saturday at SummerSlam with Rollins in an opponent. So I'm hopeful. I'm without a doubt hopeful. I've gotten to the point with WWE where, honestly, if not for this podcast, I don't know how much I'm watching every week. Like, I had sort of tuned out a little bit. Like, it's rough to watch. It's, the same matches over and over again. If we get away from that, then I'm happy. Like, I want as much wrestling as possible, and hopefully Triple H provides that.
I think that I could foresee a mixture of everything under Triple H.
Sure.
Because if you just went strong wrestling for 3 hours, I know that will tune out some WWE fans. And here's how I know. Is because that's what he did in NXT. Right. I liked it because it was different than Raw and SmackDown. You might have like a little bit of a silly vignette or kind of a wild character, but that was for character development. But for the most part, it was building on young stars or indie wrestlers that were in NXT, learning the system and being able to build. And I think that one of the reasons why I think the NXT had a hard time against AEW is because there wasn't enough entertainment. The WWE fan wants a little silly string every now and then, along with their wrestling, because that's what Vince has been feeding them for 30 years. And so just that sudden change was a problem, I think, for some. So they went to AEW. And so I just look at it like this. I really believe that Triple H is going to do well with this, understanding that he's still got kids to entertain. It's now turned to TV 14 on Raw. So you want to turn up the volume a little bit on the adult content, and then just the kick-ass wrestling. And I think that it's going to work out well. So I'm looking forward to this era, but I want to make sure it's very clear. We said this last week on the podcast. We want to make sure it's clear. Man, don't look for like these wholesale changes. It's not going to happen. It's going to take some time. Even after SummerSlam, it's still going to take a little time for the adjustment for everybody. Promos, the in-ring work, all that. So don't look for like, hey man, where's my main events? How come it doesn't look like AEW? Because it won't, not right away.
But I think those little things will be important, like little things like promos, like not having scripted promos where you see it with a guy like Moxley, who's so good on the mic, and then you look at his WWE stuff as Ambrose, like, wow, this is so scripted. And he's talked about how, he had to do these promos that were written by these writers. So maybe they get away from that a little bit. Like, that to me is a win, and I hope that's ultimately where we get to.
Okay. So, Gabe, one of the examples that I looked at with Triple H as far as tweaking a little bit is just a few little promos that we saw. Who was Miz with on Raw? Who's Miz been going out with? With Tommaso Ciampa, right?
Tommaso, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, with Ciampa
had like this. He had like maybe a 75-second promo and got right to the point, and Miz didn't have to say anything. Yeah. That's something a little edgy, and he looked in the camera too, which is different in WWE. He did that and got the storyline over himself at Madison Square Garden. That was different. I think the opening for Raw was different. I'm like, am I watching Mid-South? What the hell? It starts off with The Miz and Logan Paul. I'm like, wait, I haven't seen Raw open like that in years. So I think the little tweaks by Triple H right there shows you that he's got some say as far as making the show seem a little different.
Change that, like Roman going, hey, your daddy's not here anymore. Is that much? Or Roman just has that freedom now?
He's breaking up a little bit.
Good old live, what do we call this? Radio, podcast, whatever. Like,
Yes.
I think with Roman, like, that's the thing where a lot of people are like, oh, does this mean Roman's going to drop the belt on Saturday? Like, is he not going to be Triple H's guy? Or even a guy like Theory, where they joke about, hey, Vince is gone now. Theory's still a guy that Triple H brought over. Like, Theory is still a guy that Triple H wanted to build around. I don't think it means he cashes in and wins on Saturday, but I think he'll still be prominent. If we get guys like the Kevin Owens of the world that are a little bit more prominent, a guy who can take anything and really make it into something, that to me is what I want out of this.
Yeah, Gabe, it felt fresh and felt different. Even with Stephanie out there in Boston saying, I love you, Dad, and knowing that the page was going to be turned, and then to be able to see the opening of Raw, you can just tell that things are changed. Like, the promos is one thing for sure. I like to be able to see the wrestlers use bullet points but kind of speak for themselves. But on top of that, I like to see longer storylines. I'd also like to be able to see the establishment of new stars. And, of course, the thing that we all love as wrestling fans, surprises. When's the last time, Gabe, that we saw a surprise where you're like, man, I didn't see that coming? You got to have more of that in the WWE. You got plenty of people on the roster in which you can create surprises and something that comes out of left field.
Most of the surprises they end up doing are advertised beforehand because they want to make sure they pop the rating. If that's what they end up doing, is something more of that. It's funny, because like the way a coach or a GM from like a team, on their way out, player gets traded. Like I think about Baker Mayfield, when Baker off somebody from the Browns ends up leaking well before they played tried to get him the game plan. He had COVID, video games for 10 hours a day instead of going through the game plan. And now that's kind of happening with Vince a little bit. Oh, Vince, wasn't really paying it's happening. That's why they couldn't do long-term storytelling. As Vince is leaving what he created, he's getting in, which is also a little interesting.
Yeah, the long-term storytelling will be interesting. And also, I mean, just the roster management. Fightful reported that they talked to some free agents and talent that are in other companies now who said they'd still be in the WWE if Triple H were in charge. We all, we talked to Johnny Gargano a few weeks ago. We all agreed after the fact, hey, Johnny's going back to WWE. He's a free agent right now. He's enjoying it. But it looks like he's heading back there. He wants to be on a Mania. He wants the white strap Intercontinental title. Like, there are still WWE dreams for a lot of guys that grew up watching Mania. WrestleMania is only 40 years old. So now having Triple H in charge, I think, is going to change some things as opposed to, Toni Storm said on Jericho's podcast, she made it to SmackDown. She's like, oh, I done it. This is what I wanted to do. And she's there a few weeks like, oh, this isn't fun. Like, get me out of here. I don't think that's going to happen as much anymore. And if you're Tony Khan, and I know he's a little defensive this week on Busted Open, you got to be a little bit worried. Like, free agents aren't guaranteed to be in AEW world the minute they leave now.
That is exactly true. And by the way, the Johnny Gargano news of him possibly want to go back to WWE is broken right here on Good Karma Wrestling. Right here. Because he hinted that. You remember this, Gabe? He's like, he kind of leaned into it like, yeah, I've never been at a WrestleMania. Yeah, I'd like to have the Intercontinental. I was like, oh, so you want to go back to WWE? That was heard right here. You go back to the archives and hear our conversation with Johnny Gargano. But Gabe, you remember this like it was yesterday. He broke it here first.
News just like yeah, 1,000% Johnny Gargano, because he was in this era where he talked about Hunter, he talked about HBK, Sean. We gave him a hard time for that. Yeah, Gargano is absolutely going to end up back in WWE. The interesting part is, yes, a lot of these things it's going to take. We saw a little bit already where the open, not the open tryouts, but the tryouts that they're going to have this week, some more indie wrestlers. I think you're going to show something that ends up looking a lot like Sting.
Yeah, and I hope so. Like, that's the thing, we talked about it a few weeks ago. They're like, oh, maybe the athlete thing doesn't work, but they're not completely away from it. I think I forgot who actually reported it, but Dwight Howard was part of those tryouts also. Apparently, being in the WWE is a dream of his. So, as far as I know, Dwight not an old indie wrestler. Like, I don't think he's worked the gyms and the random rodeos and stuff. But Dwight's part of that also. So I don't think they're going to completely get away with that.
For sure.
Would you say, Gabe? Say it again.
I just said he'd stick out in the VFW if he was wrestling in the old bingo hall. Like
Yes.
He wouldn't just slide by.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know why the Dwight Howard wants his time in the WWE. They already have Omos. I don't know why they got to have him there as well. I mean, it's kind of weird. I already have a tall guy there. So, hey, we've got our 3 count here. We've got 3 topics, and we got a lot more we got to get to. So let's go to topic number 1.
All right, we'll go back to Saturday night, Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor taking place. So, guys, what grade would you give Death Before Dishonor?
It's the show itself is an end. It was fun wrestling. Again, a problem with I don't know when these guys are going and how exactly ROH fits within the as a wrestling show. Like, I mean, FTR shows tore the house down as the main event. Like we talked about, they should be the main event. They were the main events. Castagnoli. Oh, you mean you give him time to watch? Oh, sweet. Oh, you're telling me Serena Deeb and did a great job to me of putting over my. I could go and list match after match after match. It was super fun to watch. I don't know what it means for things going forward, but as a singular night of wrestling.
Jay Hood, what do you got?
Well, I tell you what, I thought it was a solid B+, and I think that when you take a look at this card, it all starts with FTR and the Briscoes, because 2 out of 3 falls, I think people are wondering, it's like, oh, well, what's going to beat the first match? Well, what I look at it is that it's not about beating the first match. Can you be able to match exactly what happened in the first match? And I think they did. 2 out of 3 falls. It's almost like some kind of super house show we were watching, because they went about almost 45 minutes, right? And so I love that match, guys. I really love that match. I think that the ebb and flow of the card, I think, was very good too, though. Gabe mentioned Serena Deeb and her matchup against Mercedes Martinez. It's funny about that match. It was really solid wrestling, and the crowd was quiet. But some people equate a quiet crowd for a match sucking, and it did not. It was just a very solid matchup. My question for Mercedes Martinez is, I'm not sure what she's supposed to be, a babyface or a heel, or just a solid wrestler. I'm not really sure. All I know is that she works hard. Serena Deeb got some support in that crowd from Lowell, Massachusetts, so I thought that was great. But overall, I thought the card was really good. It was a great effort, and I just think that Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman do a great job on commentary. I mean, you don't get the 2-man booth as much anymore, but those two really did a solid job of explaining what ROH means, and I just thought it was fantastic. I think it was a solid B+.
Yeah, there literally was no downtime this whole show. I mean, so I would go with an A. I mean, I guess the 6-man, the trios, wasn't the best, but everything else, from Claudio winning his first individual title, ending with a 2 out of 3 falls, which honestly, if not for their match in Dallas, we're probably talking about that as like match of the year. But like when they're comparing to their first one, which was so good, and then even the promo after, and FTR sort of showing that emotion, or something like Roos versus Dragon Lee, which I didn't know they were brothers until they told me 20 times during the show. Like that was thrown together last second. That was one hell of a match. Like that was a really fun match watching those guys. So I agree with what you guys are saying. It'd be nice if we had Ring of Honor TV tonight. It'd be nice if we knew when we see Ring of Honor again, because we don't even know when the next pay-per-view is. It just sort of pops up. It's like, hey, catch us in a month. It's like, all right, fine, here's my money. And they'll keep getting us that way. But I wish there was just something that we can grab onto and say, okay, this is how we're going to watch Ring of Honor from now on.
Well, they need to figure out the roster, right? Like, and if all these AEW guys end up being ROH, or is ROH going to figure that part out? Is it going to be developmental? Because that's what, when he initially had the first piece, that this would be developmental, and that's not what it is.
No, and you got so many veteran wrestlers on there as well. And I think that on top of it, and Gabe and I talked about this last week, I knew that the World Heavyweight Championship match was going to be first, because you didn't want to follow. You want to follow FTR and the Briscoes,
right?
You just didn't want to follow that. But here's the tell, right? How about this, bro? So I see Claudio Castagnoli come out, and people were supporting him. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then here comes the champion, right? Here comes Jonathan Gresham. And guess what Jonathan Gresham had? He had boo-boo face.
Yeah.
You know what boo-boo face is? And James Storm gets this too. And there's a couple other wrestlers, not very many. But you saw him come out, no flag, no octopus mask. He had a T-shirt and the title. And I go, that guy's going to lose the championship.
Right.
I was like, I knew it. I knew it. First of all, because you're not going to follow that 2 out of 3 fall tag team match. But then when I saw the world title match was going to be first, and then the way he came out, head down, I'm like, oh, he's about to lose. And by the way, and Bully Ray said this on Busted Open, and I agree with that. Hey, man, you're not supposed to sell how you feel, right? No matter what's going on in the back, you still come out with that bravado, that confidence. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take him on, and I'm going to make you believe that I'm going to beat Claudio Castagnoli. But he did not emote that confidence to make me think he was going to win, and he loses the championship. And so good for Claudio, because I think that's a very underrated part of the show, is that it's his first singles heavyweight championship. Good for him.
Right. And that's it. Bully Ray also said that about Liv Morgan at Money in the Bank, where she doesn't have that poker face. When she comes out, you're like, oh, she might know something. It's a very emotional night. She's just coming out for a match. But yeah, so Gresham and Claudio, which should have been a great match, was okay. It wasn't, up to their standards. But you get the moment. We always talk about the moment. And Claudio winning a world title after everything he's been through, even in Ring of Honor, he never was a world champion there. That was that moment. The crowd was hot from the jump for that one. And we knew this was going to happen. We knew it was going to be a great show, which it was from top to bottom. But it's just what's next for them. And even look at the champs. Most of them are AEW guys. Claudio's the world champ. Wheeler Yuta's the pure champ. Joe's the TV champ, which I guess he's an AEW guy. Like, I feel like he's on the fence right now. You got FTR's the tag champs. Mercedes, she's another one that's sort of on the fence. Like, are there going to be Ring of Honor exclusive wrestlers is going to be the interesting part, because Tony said post-show that there will still be some crossover, but are we going to see Ring of Honor be its own brand at any point?
Oh, let me ask you this. Here's a curveball about Death Before Dishonor. So what was your favorite singles match? We know what the main event was, and that's like going to be our favorite tag team match, maybe of the year. We'll see, right? I mean, I don't want to give it away. If people listen, viewers, listeners, if you have not seen this, find a way to watch it.
Yes,
it is better than what we're saying right now, because we're not trying to give it away. We're not trying to give any spoilers. We know who won the match, but the point is, though, you got to see it. So, what was your favorite singles match?
So it's funny. So after Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia had the pure title, I was like, wow, it's going to be so hard to top that, because there were the little things in that match. There were reversals that I've never seen before, which was always my favorite thing of Ring of Honor. I'd watch a match and be like, oh, I've never seen that before. But like the Regal and Jericho callbacks in the match, like those were a lot of fun. But then the match after that was Rush and Dragon Lee. That was it for me. Those guys can go. And I think I've only seen Dragon Lee like once or twice, but that was a really fun match that honestly could have been better if you had the storyline of them being brothers. Like, it could have been built up even more, as opposed to them saying, hey, by the way, they're related. It's like, nope, but thanks for telling me. That to me was my favorite singles match.
I think it's very close. I think that's my one, Rush and Dragon Lee, but Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia in that pure championship matchup. Brother, let me tell you something. Like, I've heard that Daniel Garcia can go. Okay, I've read about this. I've seen this, but I was like, but can he really go? Like, I've seen him at indies and stuff like that. Like, yeah, he's a good wrestler. But like the last couple of shows, this show, and of course Dynamite, which we'll get to, man, I mean, he's very good, because you see him. His name's Daniel Garcia. It's like, well, what does he do? He's a wrestler. Right. Okay, so what makes him special? He has a special story, because they illustrated, the accident that he was in. But just like, what is he? He's Daniel Garcia.
But that's a babyface story. Like, that's not a heel story. You don't want that out there.
I would agree. I really thought you were going to give me Willow Nightingale, Allison Kay was your favorite singles match.
I do want to see more of Willow. I think she's a future star. I wish they would use her more and actually give her some meaningful wins. But like that match, that pure title match, AEW gets a lot of slack for some of the older guys they push and the ex-WWE guys. Their young core is so strong, and they're going to get some time to develop. But like Yuta, Garcia, Darby, Jungle Boy, MJF maybe, like that is a really strong core of guys under the age of 30 that are the future of this business all on one roster right now.
Mike the Fowl from New York says he thought it was a very good pay-per-view, a solid B+. The Gresham thing bothered him. Yeah, I saw Boo Boo Face as soon as he came on, like, oh, come on, brother. Like, he's going to lose, but it's like, hey, man. But then the aftermath, should we save that for news and notes, or can we bring it up now?
Well, let's bring it up now, yeah.
Okay, so the aftermath is it's a yelling match between Gresham and Tony Khan in the back. It's like, then he asked for his release this week.
Yeah.
He doesn't want
to.
So
apparently, he wasn't happy with the heel turn and some of the storytelling. And, like, I know a lot of people are going to try and place that blame on Tony Khan. And sure, there's probably some communication issues. They are a new company. But not everyone can get their way. Not everyone's going to be happy with their storyline. Like, at least give it some time to work out.
Yeah, I would think so too. But you know what? It's about your happiness now. This is what it's about. You could be in contract and just ask for your release and just walk out. You know, this is the business now. Before, you used to honor your contract no matter how frustrated you were. But now, you know, Sasha, Naomi, Gresham, they just feel like, hey, you know, and so Gresham's thought, by the way, was this. He's like, you know, how come I'm a technical wrestler but can't get over, but Bryan Danielson can? You saw that quote, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, hey, man, I respect you. Absolutely, I respect you. Hey, listen, make them believe. Like, I believe, make Tony Khan and AEW or Ring of Honor believe, hey, man, that you are worth it. You don't like the creative? Work, just work. But that's not how he feels, So I don't know if there's going to be something worked out. I don't know if we're going to see Gresham in the WWE. I don't know if that fits. But I just know that Gresham is a good wrestler, and it's too bad. It's too bad that worked out that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's interesting to see it go this way, whereas, like, you ask for your release from the WWE world, and there's these endless possibilities. Jonathan Gresham options are probably limited outside of this world. He says he's not going to wrestle for a little bit. That's why he went out there as himself, because he knew it was going to be his last match for a while. But, I mean, maybe the new WWE, it's a different story, but Gresham doesn't quite fit the WWE molds.
I would agree with that. So we'll just see how that happens. But I thought it was a solid B. They did a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next with Ring of Honor. I know that TV deals don't grow on trees. I understand that. But, man, like, one of those YouTube shows that AEW has, I like for Ring of Honor to replace that. And I know it's like, well, where would they wrestle? They wrestle in Orlando, right?
Right.
I mean,
you can figure that out after the fact.
That's what I think. But I look forward to seeing what's next with them.
All right, moving on. Number 2, last night on Dynamite, a couple stories involving titles. What was a bigger title story from last night? The fact that we will have new trios titles in AEW. They will be crowned at All Out. Or Hook winning the FTW title from Ricky Starks.
Okay, well, this is layered when it comes to Ricky Starks. The trios titles, I guess this is something you're going to do every month, is just introduce new titles. Because the fans have been begging for the trios titles. Like, what?
But
who?
At least this is different, though. Like, the trios titles will stand alone. It gives a lot of things to do for a lot of guys, as opposed to the Atlantic title. I think that's what it's called. Like, all those titles are the same. They're mid-card titles. They're all the same. Trios gives us something to do. House of Black, Best Friends, Dark Order. Like, there are a lot of people that can benefit from the trios titles.
But who's over, Broets? Who's over?
I mean, the Bucks.
Give the three of us the trios titles. But the question is, who's over, right? You can put belts on everybody. Who's over?
Sure, that's fair.
Okay, so the House of Black is over to me.
Yes. Okay,
cool. Do you have enough contenders, real contenders, to have banger trios matches? Like, who is Gabe's favorite?
Ray Phoenix.
AEW? Ray Phoenix, right? Yeah. And like him and his brother, and like a third
Pac,
person.
But they sort of gave Pac a title already, so you have that trio. Like, Dark Order has been very over at times. Like, imagine what they could have done with something to chase. Like, ultimately, it looks like this is leading to Kenny, where, the rumors always were they're not going to do this until Kenny's ready to go. I think the perfect storyline is, Hangman and Dark Order versus the Bucks and Brandon for the trios titles. Cutler gets injured, out comes Kenny, and then there you go. They're your first champs.
Sure. I just I just think that you have time for this. I don't need it today.
Sure.
I need it. Give it to me at the end of the fall. Give me that in 2023. I don't need it right now. Why are you rushing these titles up? Like, you know
I
why?
mean, we're going to get a tournament. So you're going to see some people. So at least there's that to look forward to.
Oh, my God. You're too young for this. I'm old enough to remember when trios or six-man titles were as a trophy.
Okay, wow.
Just like carrying a whole trophy. It's like the Von Erichs, right? It's just like we're the six-man tag team champions, and here's our six-man trophy. Like, what? Just like, well, who's gonna hold it? Like David, Kerry, Mike, Kevin? Who holds the six?
That's unfortunate.
It's true. No, couldn't afford belts back then. Couldn't afford titles. Like, that's too much. I'm gonna have 3 more championships. Carry the trophy like a bowling trophy. Honest to God, back in the day. So you and I, and if Gabe gets back on here, he's got a tough time with cell service in the mountains of Wisconsin, the mountains and the hills of Wisconsin. But we really got, so the answer to the question is Hook winning the FTW championship. Okay, so but it's very layered though, because I'm watching Ricky Starks, and what we saw is where a babyface star is born from taking on Danhausen and beating him quickly to taking on Hook, and then Hook beating Ricky Starks to that promo to the Hobbs turn. We just saw all in 1 hour a babyface star is born.
Yep. And so, the impressive part also, like, talk about layers, you have that turn while also having Danhausen be ridiculously over and then have a squash match, and then the Hook moment also. So you have all of that, right next to each other, and I think that's credit to AEW storytelling right there.
It was really amazing from one Dynamite to the other, because I did not like the last Dynamite that they had. I thought it was horrible. But it's amazing what they just did. You see what they did, bro? So you made Ricky Starks a star, a babyface star. You just hooked up Hobbs as this big-time heel, and you just hooked up Hook to be the FTW champion, all at the same time.
Yeah,
that's tremendous. The domino effect of how that all happened was a great moment for AEW Dynamite. It really was. Yep. So the answer is Hook, and because Hook's over, but it just, all of this was a surprise. I don't know how you took it. It was a surprise, right? So it starts with Ricky Starks beating Danhausen. That's nothing, right? It's a gimmick match, 2-3 minutes. but then it's like Ricky Starks wants more, and here comes Hook. Wait, isn't Hook and Ricky Starks in the same faction?
Right.
How come Ricky Starks didn't leave? He was like, well, hey, man, we're together. All right, I'll give you the match. And Hook beats Ricky Starks.
Yeah.
And I got something on this also that I'm really disappointed in a minute. But then, once that match is over, I don't expect to see Ricky Starks back in the ring. Right. I'm like, what's he still doing there?
Right.
You lost. Let's get to the next thing. What is Ricky Starks and Hobbs going to say? See, we didn't expect it to happen. What I say about Triple H and Raw and SmackDown, surprises. Yep. What's Ricky Starks going to say? That babyface promo he gave, tremendous. And then out of nowhere, bam, the forearm to the back by Hobbs. I'm like,
and that was stiff. That was a stiff forearm.
What happened there? Nobody saw that coming. I love that because I didn't see it coming. Nobody saw it coming.
And I think the best part also of that is this is AEW sort of giving the fans what they want. Because I think the Ricky face turn has been very organic. The triple threat tag match, it was Ricky getting a lot of the pops. Like, ultimately, Swerve and Keith Lee win the titles, which was a big moment. But remember how over Ricky Starks was in that match. Like, fans were starting to get into him. You had the special intro last night, which was pretty cool. So that was special. And then with the Hook thing also, a lot of people complain and say, oh, they're wasting him. Like, it's such a disappointment. That was still a moment last night. Like, I put Hook, that pop, right up there with when Wardlow won the title. Like, they are doing a good job of building stars. And then you have the extra little carrot also of Taz on the call. Like, that was a really special moment. Like, that whole thing. And it was just perfectly executed, honestly.
I saw Ricky Starks in the NWA. Okay. In the new NWA. And I was watching him. I'm like, man, this guy's got charisma. Like, this guy's got it. And he was just taking on the wrestlers that was on the roster that was put together. And I was like, this guy could be something. And then when I found out he was in AEW, I'm like, I mean, they got this. I know a lot of people wasn't watching NWA like I was on YouTube. I'm like, this guy's going to be something. He's got this rock-like charisma.
Yep.
And, let's point this out, too. The video before he had his match against Danhausen, and I'm like, where did this video came from? It was so slickly done.
Right.
I said, this is very interesting. It's something new, right?
And I think also I like, and I don't want, I hate comparing them, but the fact that he's a Cody guy isn't against him. Oh, you're a Cody guy, back of the line now. Cody's gone. He's not here to protect you. If anything, he's more over and gotten more involved in things since Cody left. So, I give them credit for that as well.
Here's the problem, right? Here's my problem. There's always going to be a problem. So, this means the end of Team Taz.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you, bro, it's really unfortunate. Team Taz could have been so much better.
Sure.
Their promos were fantastic, starting with Taz. They were believable. It was tough. It was different. But can I just tell you, for Taz not to get out of the chair to celebrate his son winning the first championship, for Taz not to get out of the chair when he could see that Starks and Hobbs are breaking up, you know what? He's the laziest manager I've ever seen in the sport. But no, he's the manager. Captain Lou was washed.
Yeah.
25 years down the line. Johnny Valiant was washed. Mr. Fuji's one of the worst managers of all time, but he still waddled his way down to ringside to help Morocco. This is the worst. Now I understand, Taz can't be touched because of the neck. He's probably got Lloyd's of London, whatever. But the idea that you're not there to celebrate your son, he doesn't come down for that. He says, "What the F is going on here, JR? What's happening here? Why don't you go down and find out?" He never left. And then you go to the next segment, didn't even talk about it. He should be devastated. Oh my God, my whole Team Taz is blown up. All right, what's next in the format?
I get what you're saying, but they've been very good at organically things just ending. You mentioned, aren't Hook and Starks sort of together? We haven't seen them together in a while because Starks and Hobbs have been heels while Hook has been a face and teaming with Danhausen. They've sort of separated themselves. And even when it comes to Starks and Hobbs, they're referred to as Starks and Hobbs. We haven't really hear a lot of Team Taz. Taz talks about them. So I feel this might have just been the organic way of all right, we're moving on. Taz hasn't been doing promos with them recently.
They're part of Team Taz. You know that.
Yes.
What?
I know that, but we haven't seen that. Since the Brian Cage stuff and all those sort of things, they haven't been as prominent. I think basically since Hook started doing his own thing. That's when it sort of drifted apart.
It doesn't make sense to me. But you know why? If they were not still part of Team Taz, why would Taz be so? What the F's going on here? Got Ricky Starks. What's happening here? Get your ass out of the booth and go down there and find out what's going on.
Right.
I know he can't have physicality.
Yeah.
I know that much. But come on, man. I mean, if that's you and I, we're coming down there to see what happened,
right.
Or walking Hobbs up the ramp and saying, "Hey man, why'd you do that to my man Ricky? Go in the ring, find out what's happening to Ricky." The laziest manager in the history of the business. He's a busy man.
He's got another job. He's got to worry about his commentating.
I have seen managers in wheelchairs. I've seen managers on walking canes. I've seen managers sit in the booth with Gorilla Monsoon. Heenan would be in the booth. He wasn't touched to the booth. If this guy's in trouble, he takes the headphones off and tries to interfere. He sits up there on the ramp while Team Taz is dissolving and does nothing about it. Get your ass up and do something about it, Taz.
Maybe he thought JR was going to handle it.
I'm sure. It's Wednesday night. Where are we, Tony? God Almighty! I was just flummoxed by that. I didn't understand it. But you know what though? But I just thought that was a great segment. And Ricky Starks. And here's the theme of Dynamite: young.
Yep.
Young stars were featured. I mean, Moxley aside, and just in the main event, young. It showed you the next level, but away from the veterans, just the young stars that are coming up that's going to help this company supposedly 3 to 5 years, right? I
mean, the night ended. We were talking Daniel Garcia beating Bryan Danielson. That's how the night ended last night, which Bryan return, wasn't a lot of fanfare. It was just sort of thrown in like, hey, this is happening also. But like Daniel Garcia beating him is a big deal.
It was. And that's why it's so funny how I felt about it last week. I was so down on Dynamite last week because I was just, the barbed wire, everything else, right?
Yes.
That didn't bother me as much as the rest of it. Just a lot of the in-ring just was underwhelming. But I think they turned it out complete 180 this week. Roosh and Moxley. We're talking before the show about how impressive Roosh is, right? We see him at Death Before Dishonor beat his brother. He takes on Moxley, and I see the internet rumor. The internet is like, Moxley crushed Roosh. Now Roosh is done. Roosh is not done.
Oh, yeah.
He's not done. And actually, that was a physical, fun battle between the two. I would also tell John Moxley this. This isn't 1985 where you feel like if you bleed every night, you get an extra $500 in your paycheck. That's not what it is. You don't bleed just because you don't get paid more because you bleed. You don't have to bleed every. See, when you bleed every match, now you take the not necessarily the fun, but you take the spontaneity out of it.
Yeah. And the novelty. Like, I think one of the reasons we look back on that Cody Dustin match and that blood and how special it was because of how rare it was. Like, we hadn't seen blood in so long on like a national product. So it was a big deal. But yes, Mox bleeding at 8:05 on a Wednesday night, like it takes away from that moment. Like the novelty is gone when it comes to Moxley bleeding.
I see Eric Collins here. Says, I'm waiting for the all-African title. All the brothers and sisters can fight for it. You see it there?
Yes.
Well, that's called the TBS championship. that's the Jade Cargill championship. I believe.
Hey, they still have that moment out there. Like whenever she loses, that'll be a moment. That's still waiting.
So we do have the all-African title. Hey, we already have that. So that anything else from Dynamite? So the Jungle Boy promo.
Yeah, so we talked a few weeks ago about Christian sort of crossing that line, and like it was weird to me because of the fact that we've seen Christian not be that for so long. So it didn't feel organic. It felt fake. Jungle Boy last night, it had those moments of like a little kid cursing because he knows he can. Like, oh, mom's not around. I can say the bad word right now. But like it was a different edge to Jungle Boy, and we don't usually see him on the mic. Like I think overall that was a good moment from Jungle Boy.
Yeah, probably the promo of his career. But I know there's a lot there, when you're talking about Christian's divorce, call them the P word, even though
you can say that on TV. Right.
Yeah. Even I won't use that. I mean, me. Like, so I'm looking at that, bro, and I'm like, and just like little side jabs too. Like, I'm sure it wasn't part of the bullet points. He just talks about, Christian's dick and all that. I'm just like, oh man. Like, I'm watching that and I'm just like, okay, it's comedy night. Like it's open mic night, and this guy is just going after Christian and cutting him to pieces.
Right.
And then there's Christian in the back, and it's just I love it, man, because he's just always going to wear the turtleneck and a jacket in the summer. It's amazing. I mean, I'm sure it was not cool in Worcester, Massachusetts yesterday, but it happened. And so here's the thing. Then you had the back and forth. Just let it pay off. Are we going to get a good Christian Jungle Boy match? Otherwise, it's just a war of words just to be able to do it because you can.
Well, so speaking of that payoff, is that all out? Like, do we have a month of this back and forth right now? And then, like, where does Luchasaurus play in there? Because it's late July. All out is early September. Is there going to be a month of this?
Probably so.
Okay.
Probably so. I wouldn't have these guys. I mean, I like what they've done because they've told a good story.
Yeah.
The one-man concerto, Jungle Boy coming out, and boy, from a year ago, and I know that Mark Henry and others have worked with Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy was that dude that was time for promos, and he would hide in the closet.
Right.
This is legit. Like when it came to promos, he didn't want to do it. Like that, even him going with Kenny Omega going back and forth, like. He didn't want to do it because, and Kenny's not a great promo, but he's good enough to be able to get his point across, right? And so he would just hide. And Mark Henry and others worked with him. It's like, hey, man, look, you have got to, you look good. When you come out, the ladies yell for you. The little kids love you. The people are swaying when you come out there. So you got to be able to talk. you have to say something. You can't be Marco Stunt. Someone else has to speak for you. And he's come out of his shell in a big way. That shows growth, right?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's sort of the next step to him ultimately, being a singles champion. Like that match with Kenny was a great match. And like they did a good job where there were a couple times that it was a Saturday night where it's like, is this going to happen? Like, is Jungle Boy going to win? But he's one of those guys that we've talked about a lot. Like they got away from it a little bit with the TNT title, but they're building up people to when they win those belts, it is going to be special. It is going to be a magical moment, specifically that world title, to where there are a long list of guys who are like, wow, this is special. I'll remember this, for a while. And Jungle Boy is definitely part of that group.
As much as you and I like young wrestlers, the next generation of wrestlers, you do like veterans that know what they're doing.
Sure.
And one of them is Danielson. You mentioned Danielson and Garcia. Danielson understood, like, he's coming off a concussion, and he's like, you know what? Just kick me in the head. Right. And when I fly outside, I'm going to hit my head on the concrete, and I want you to DDT me or whatever the hell on the concrete. But bro, he's risking it all.
I know. Like, it makes me uncomfortable watching. Like, I love watching Bryan Danielson wrestle, but like,
yeah,
it's still uncomfortable. Like, I remember feeling that when he returned at Mania, and now that he had another concussion, like, I get what they're doing with the storytelling there, but like, do we really need to go down that route? Like, actually playing up the concussion angle? Like, it is a serious matter.
It is a serious matter. So serious that if the doctors find anything else on him, okay, so maybe now you're risking your career. But he's willing to do it with Daniel Garcia, though, and that's the thing I was telling you about. Man, Danielson's like, yeah, beat me, man.
Right.
And but if you're a young wrestler, he's like, wait, man, you're Bryan Danielson. You want me to go over you? Yeah, man. I mean, I've seen your stuff. Yeah, I mean, but apparently Danielson says this a lot.
That's
like
awesome.
because he doesn't care about the losses, man. He'll go down to Orlando at dark and goes, I just want to fight, man. Someone's gonna wrestle me. Yeah, this kid here that you just brought in, yeah, put him over me. And they're like, no, like, no, we're not doing that. Oh, but he's so good. Like, no. I mean, Danielson looks at Garcia and goes, you know what? You want to do an F, a F finish to me, that's fine. But I want Daniel Garcia to go over because I see something in him. He's the next generation. But Danielson's willing to risk it and go 1,000,000 miles an hour on a match on Dynamite. He knew how fast. That's why he started the match that way. He started off with a leg lariat right into the corner immediately. It's like, dude, like, you're just not going to slow it down. Now, here's the thing. WWE, they would have told him, take your time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just like, you don't have to do all this. You want to get in the ring? All right, but I don't want you to do it. But for Danielson, he's like, I don't care. Yeah. It's Daniel Garcia. Let's do it.
Yeah, and it's a big moment for Daniel Garcia. It makes him even more legitimate. Like, it was a perfect ending to the show last night and fun to watch.
Yeah, so a good Dynamite show from Worcester, and so we will see what happens. But for what shows you, 180 degrees night and day for Dynamite. Really good show.
All right, final one here in the 3 count. Saturday night from Nashville. It will be SummerSlam. Currently 7 matches on the card. 5 of them are title matches. So when we take the air after SummerSlam ends, how many title changes will we see on Saturday?
Well,
and those title matches, I'll throw it out there. Undisputed title, Roman versus Brock. Liv Morgan defends the SmackDown Women's title against Ronda Rousey. Lashley defends the U.S. title against Theory. Bianca Belair defends the Raw Women's title against Becky Lynch. And the Usos defend the undisputed tag titles against the Street Profits, with, of course, Jeff Jarrett as the special referee, which still doesn't make any sense.
So, you're right. Especially when Jeff Jarrett is smaller than all 4 guys. What does that mean? By the way, just a quick shout out to Jeff Jarrett, one of the smartest guys in wrestling. Amazing, right? Babyface in one show, heel in the next.
Right.
It's like, you're going to be in the middle of Ric Flair's last match, but yet you're going to be a babyface referee, we think, at SummerSlam.
So weird.
Be funny if the WWE kind of winked at that. Like, if Jarrett, what if Jarrett turns heel and makes the Street Profits lose? And then all of a sudden, now there's frustration on the part of Street Profits. Like, you know what? We keep trying. We just can't win these championships. We're going our own way. And then we get a Hobbs-Stark situation with the Street Profits.
I guess it feels like it's going that way. It's the only way to sort of end this storyline. Like, I feel like the Usos are going to win, and then that's the next logical step, unless we get Usos Street Profits at pretty much every pay-per-view the rest of the year. or premium live event. Sorry.
Yeah, be careful now. So lightning strikes twice at SummerSlam with Becky beating Bianca.
You think so? Okay.
There's got to be some title changes, and so it's not to say that Belair has not been a great champion, but I know that they feel strongly about Becky, and this matchup is really fun. That's the women's match I'm looking forward to seeing the most because there's no real heat with Rousey and Liv Morgan. No. There's just no. I mean, I saw their face to face at SmackDown. It's kind of like I didn't see anything that made me think, God, I got to see this match.
Yeah, no, there's nothing there. To me, though, like, that's the only title change we see is the SmackDown Women's title. I think Ronda gets the belt back. They give it back to her. Doesn't really make sense logically, but, like, I don't see them having Liv go over Ronda clean.
Wow, you're going to get the Liv stands coming after you, man.
I'm not saying it makes sense, but I'm saying that's sort of what I see. Like, that's the only logical title change I see.
All 5 of the Liv stands are going to come after you, man. I'm just okay, so I'll ask you this. Since she's had the title, do you know anything? What do you know about Liv Morgan?
She's happy to be the champ.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's about it.
Right. That's all I got.
So, okay. So I think that Lightning could strike twice at SummerSlam like it did last year in Vegas. I think Becky could go over Bianca and they can keep that storyline going. Why is Theory in this U.S. title rematch against Lashley? Like, he's already Money in the Bank.
Right. And he's talking about cashing in on Saturday. So, like, he's already got his eyes on the world title.
Okay. So Lashley beats Theory. Theory tries to cash in. Theory loses his opportunity to cash in. Like,
So I guess what percent chance? So Sunday marks 700 days as Roman is champion. What percent Theory ends the night as world champ?
1%.
1, okay.
1%. 0. I mean, like 0.0001%.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Like 1%. So because Roman is going to beat Brock.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of the reasons why that Brock walked out of SmackDown is because he's like, Brock might have been, and that's another story. See, we got a lot of wrestling to get to. Brock walks out of SmackDown and then is probably got on the phone with Vince, and Vince probably told him, "Come on, pal. I'm out of there, but you still got to do business. Do the right thing, pal. God damn, do the right thing." And then from there, right?
And Michael Cole was not disappointed in Brock like he was Sasha and Naomi. Shocking.
Man, don't start, man. You're going to get people upset. People didn't like that. They were mad at that shit. Don't do that. So, you don't do that, man. The Naomi and Sasha stands were just like, wait a minute, why come you were disappointed in Brock? What about that? Like, that was a trend for a while. I'm like,
hey, CM Punk threw it out also at Comic-Con. He pointed it out also. He said he got that treatment, so why didn't Brock?
And by the way, just between you and I, Steve Austin did the same thing. Took his ball and went home. Didn't want to lose to Jonathan Coachman. Went home. Remember that. But we're not supposed to talk about that though. Anyway, so I imagine that Roman's going to beat Brock, and Brock goes home. The cash in, like it makes no sense for Theory to go over Roman. I don't care how worn down Roman is. That kid cannot be the dual champion. Sorry. I know they're trying to paint that picture, but what does that look like? Like, you talk about, if Theory goes over at SummerSlam, we're talking about a brand new WWE.
Yeah. I mean, is that who you want main eventing a stadium show overseas as your world champion?
No, I do not. It's cool that he's got the little briefcase around, but no. I expect so that's going to stay the same. Lashley's going to retain his U.S. title. The Usos are going to retain, and I just see Becky and Belair. And you say Rousey and Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
I don't see anything else.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing there, and that's the thing. Like, you look at the show, there's a couple celebrity matches, McAfee versus Corbin, Miz versus Logan Paul. Like, this is SummerSlam. It doesn't feel like one of the majors, like, one of the core 4. Like, it is a very lackluster card on Saturday that seems very predictable also. Like, the women's title matches are the only ones where we could sort of make a case there might be a title change.
McAfee and Baron Corbin's going to be a banger.
Okay.
You don't think so?
Corbin doesn't do it for me. Like, yeah, McAfee will perform. I'm interested to see it because this is the first McAfee match where the guy he's wrestling isn't someone that can have a 5-star match with, a broomstick. So McAfee might have to work a little bit more in this one. So I'm curious to see that part of it.
Yeah, I think that McAfee, he just has it, man. I saw his promo on SmackDown where he's attacked by Corbin. He chases Corbin to the back. He does the promo in the ring and was just I mean, the dude is just built for pro wrestling.
Yeah.
You could tell he studied it. It's almost old school the way he does it. It's just like this guy it's not his radio show. It's just not him being just crazy. That guy feels pro wrestling. It comes out of him and he gets a reaction. Bum ass Corbin. Right. He knows how to get the crowd going too, man. He's good. Like, will he ever do it full time? No, but like on these one-offs. And by the way, now that McMahon's gone, not sure if we're going to see McAfee in the ring as much anymore. I think McMahon liked it, but
Triple H used him. Like we saw, and maybe that was a Vince decision, but we saw him in NXT against Cole, and they did that whole thing.
True. That's true.
So maybe there's something there.
So yeah, based on the card, and you are correct. Does it feel like the SummerSlams in the past? No. But the reason why that is because of lack of star power.
Right.
Once again. And then, of course, along with that, God, this has been a long week. So Seth Rollins apparently will not wrestle at SummerSlam because of the quote-unquote kayfabe injury with
Riddle.
With Matt Riddle. So wait, you're gonna wait till like the Castle pay-per-view? Why can't they have this match at SummerSlam and then do the Clash of the Castle and have a rematch? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, that is weird. Rollins took to social media and did the whole oh, I'm sorry to anyone that bought a ticket to see me. Triple H responded, said, I hear you. So maybe it is Rollins versus mystery opponent again. They worked at Mania, even though we knew who said mystery opponent was, but maybe that's sort of the first Triple H thing. Like, hey, let's throw someone out there and let those guys just go and put on a banger on Saturday.
Cool. Gunter. Book it. What? You don't like Gunter?
But that doesn't make sense. Like, where does that make sense? You want Rollins as the IC champ?
No, Gunter beats Rollins. Gets over and beats Rollins. Bam! Big chops.
So Santos says Brian Alvarez said it's going to be Dolph.
Dolph. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that'd be a great match. Doesn't make sense storyline anywhere.
I mean, listen. I mean, so Randy Orton's best friend is not going to be there. So, but I mean, it'll be a fine match, though, won't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, maybe they do just save it, and maybe there is nothing to it. But like, I think this is the show we ultimately look back on and say this is the end of the Vince era. Like, this is the final Vince show. I don't think they're going to blow up too much to where, like we said, it's not where Theory ends the night as champion, but this is the end of the Vince era, and this is going to be a very big moment we look back on and landmark and say, okay, Monday Night Raw, that's the Triple H era. Let's go and see what happens.
I would agree with you there.
All right. Before we get out, some of the things we like to do, let's do a little news and notes. We've mentioned a couple of them. Jonathan Gresham reportedly asked for his Ring of Honor release. Rollins Riddle off SummerSlam. Speaking of WWE, WrestleMania 40, which will be next year, will take part at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia and will be 2 nights again. So it looks like that's here to stay, the 2 nights.
I checked the weather in Philadelphia, and it's usually around the 50s.
Oh.
For the 40s or 50s. And so, McMahon's had the luck of the Irish for a long time with these outdoor events, right? It worked out in New York. It did rain in Tampa, but the rain went away because of Florida.
But you had a lightning delay. You had a lightning delay in Tampa.
Yeah, they did. And so Philadelphia is going to be an interesting test. Like, I never thought it'd be there, but it is there. And so, okay, WrestleMania 40, the hope is that they have great weather and that people have a great time. But it's kind of where Nick Khan and Vince were going with this. They have more stadium shows. I mean, this SummerSlam is going to be a Nissan Stadium with the home of the Titans. Right. Like, they had never done that before. And keep in mind, see, bro, it's a longer conversation, but just get this. You're having SummerSlam in Nashville, a place that you really didn't consider a major town, but it's a major stadium, and they want to have
Right.
more stadium events to pack more people in. And this is where, you don't have 10 stars that you want to see. You see the WWE coming to town, but you have like a handful of people that you like, but it's not like every match is a banger.
Right. And that's the thing. Like WrestleMania is for the casual fan. You're going to get the celebrity matches. So maybe it'll be changed by that time. With the new WWE, who knows what it looks like. But that'll take place early April next year. Speaking of WWE, Triple H, NXT reportedly will have a premium live event the same day as All Out. WrestleNomics, the first to report on that one.
Okay, so NXT is going to have a premium live. It's going to be on Peacock, I guess.
Yep.
Okay. Against All Out on Sunday. That Sunday.
Yep. Same night, and I assume same time.
Yeah, no one's watching that.
Right.
No one's watching that. No one's watching an NXT show. I mean, God bless him for doing that. But and why? Why would you do that? Why don't you put it on Saturday?
Yeah, that's a weird one because also, even if you assume and hope that maybe, 2.0 is sort of going to the side and we get black and gold back, that's only a month away. So, we wouldn't even see the full transformation yet. Ron Baker and Mandy, I know they're working hard, but, that's not going up against All Out. That's a very odd decision.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Well, I understand why they're doing it. I get that. But it's yeah, maybe they're going to be the show before you get to All Out. Maybe it's an afternoon show. You said head to head, so it's going to be in the evening, right?
That's what they're saying, yeah.
Yeah, sorry if if that is not Gargano Ciampa in the main event, then I'm not watching that. I'm not. Hey man, nothing against Lash Legend. I love her. But I'm not watching Lash Legend in some matchup against the lady that sleeps and that's in a sleeper.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Wendy Chu.
Wendy Chu. Yeah, Wendy Chu. I'm not watching that, brother. Sorry. I'll actually be at All Out, so I won't be watching NXT. That is for
You're
sure.
not watching it on your phone while there?
No, I am not. No.
And then finally, in news and notes, Denise Salzio reporting WWE plans to make attempts to reconcile with Sasha Banks and Naomi.
That is a positive, and if that does come to fruition, that means that there really was a disconnect with Vince.
Yep.
And we kind of know that anyway, but I think it confirms it. If Sasha Banks does return, and we kept hearing that Naomi would try to come back anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, her husband's there. If they do come back, both of them, then you know that it was a Vince issue that they had. And that would be for a lot of people. Hey, listen, through the grapevine, we keep hearing that those that left WWE wish that they were still there with Vince being gone.
Right.
That says a lot for Vince, in which they appreciate Vince and the money and the opportunity, but just the working conditions for some of those wrestlers and backstage people they couldn't take. They didn't like the environment, and that's why they went to AEW or went on the indie circuit. This is why we have Control Your Narrative. Right? That's why they have because they're just I just can't take it, man. It's just I'm never going to get over. I can't. No one listens to my ideas. I can't control my own character. You got me buried on WWE main event. Yeah, I can never get in the pay-per-view. So, and by the way, speaking of that, so Gunther is not on this pay-per-view?
Nope.
Is he in the pre-show? No?
I haven't seen the pre-show announced yet. Maybe they'll announce it tomorrow night because they still have one more show.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking, my friend. I don't see any other new. I mean, I think we covered a lot here from SmackDown last Friday. And by the way, people can go in the archives of Good Karma Wrestling and go back to our pop-up show that we did to talk about Vince being ousted by the WWE. He retires, quote unquote, but he was definitely ousted. Yes. He couldn't survive this. And then the Triple H era beginning, and then Monday Night Raw. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I guess one other thing is shout out to Rey Mysterio for 20 years in WWE. Great promo. And no back jumping, and he actually won the match. The afterbirth, of course, afterwards, where he gets jumped. I mean, that's where you're going to do it. You do it in the locker room. That's old school, also. But how about this? If this is Vince, he gets embarrassed in front of his family. He gets his ass whooped in front of Madison Square Garden. He can't get his old promo out because there would be somebody's theme that would interrupt his thoughts.
I kept waiting for it, like the entire promo.
Yeah.
Like, all right, when's it coming? When's it coming? I was like, oh, he's still going.
Yeah, how about that, right?
Yeah.
So that's new. That's
Yes.
because Ray deserves that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I assume it hasn't been announced yet, but I assume some sort of maybe him and Dominic versus Priest and Finn on Saturday, even though they just did that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Because Dominic's going to turn on Ray. I've been hearing that for, a year?
Right. So now he's going to join Judgment Day. So there you go.
And I think to myself every time I hear that, so Dominic turns on Ray. So what does Dominic do?
Right.
He sucks.
Right.
Right? It's like, why isn't this kid in NXT learning? Like,
yes.
So he turns on Ray. So we're gonna pay a ticket to see Ray versus Dominic? Like, so because everybody wants to see that, right?
Right. But hey, we might get Ray in the Halloween Havoc gear, so that'll be exciting.
And I saw that. I thought that was cool. And Logan Paul is a heel, and his tiny balls. That's all I have.
Yeah, so weird.
Like it's not working.
No,
and that's something that Vince tried to force. It's just not working, brother. Like he's a heel, and he mentioned tiny balls. Madison Square Garden's like, yeah, that's funny. Tiny balls, yeah, that's funny. And Miz got tiny balls, but then Miz comes out and he gets this big ovation because he's more over than Logan Paul because the Paul brothers are bad guys.
Right, but you get that YouTube, that fan base or whatever. People are tuning in. Before we go, of course, match of the week. Is there anything besides the 2 out of 3 falls?
No. FTR the Briscoes is the best match that we saw this week. There's no question about that. And if you have not seen ROH Death Before Dishonor, listen, all three of us believe that it was a great match. Go out of your way to see the pay-per-view, but that match, tremendous storytelling to the point where, like, Browitz is afraid for Bryan Danielson. I'm afraid for Dax. I'm like, dude, he's put together with Scotch tape. Seriously, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I know he's hurting. He's in pain. I'm concerned for him but I tell you what, Dax Harwood is like a wrestler of the year type right now. I mean, he's just been doing some great, and that match was fantastic. So nothing beats that.
No, completely agree. I mean, those guys want to be old school. That's what they are. I know for me, and not a lot of people probably saw it, but Triple L, I saw a show in Denver, which stands for Lucha Libre and Laughs. Big show there from a brewery. So watching random people watch pro wrestling while they were just there to have a beer on a Sunday afternoon, entertaining in itself. So shout out to Triple L.
I wish Gabe was here. He'd be killing you right now. Neitzel would be killing you over Triple L. And then of course our overseer here of the show, Evan Cohen, wants to cancel our show because of the picture you took, because there's a crowd of like 18 people in there. So embarrassing. He wants to unplug the show.
It just happened to be where I was. So, I took in some live pro wrestling. And also their thing was they had live commentary also with stand-up comedians. So they were cracking jokes the whole time. It was very innovative in the Denver area.
Oh, my God. Oh, so sad. Well, folks, we want you to know that we're going to have a special show. If you enjoy this, you will enjoy Good Karma Wrestling. GKW Saturday night.
That's
GKW Saturday night. That's what it'll be. After SummerSlam, the three of us will be together. Make sure that you hang out with your boys after SummerSlam. Don't go anyplace else. It'll pop up on YouTube. YouTube.com. Look for Good Karma Wrestling. We're about 8 or 9 away from having 300 subscribers. So we want you to jump on YouTube for that. If you don't catch it there, we're going to be on Twitch as well. Twitch.tv/ESPN 1000 Chicago will be on Twitch. And of course, if you don't catch it, catch the podcast as well. But look for us Saturday night for after SummerSlam from Nashville, Tennessee.
That's right. As soon as the show ends, we got you. It might be the Austin Theory, or I guess just Theory, Championship Celebration Show.
Oh, my God. I won't show up then for that. So, and Gabe will be settled. He will not be in the mountains and the hills of Wisconsin. He'll be in his abode, part of this show as well. So, for our guy, Gabe Neitzel, and for Brian Rowitz, this is Jonathan Hood. This has been Good Karma Wrestling. Join us Saturday for a special post-SummerSlam show right here.